The Legiones Astartes, also known as the Space Marine Legion, these were from the Great Crusade era of M30 and was one of the original 20 massive fighting forces of genetically modified superhuman warriors, each created by the Emperor of Mankind. These legions were the forerunners of the smaller Space Marine chapters we see in the 41st Millennium, but during the Great Crusade they were much larger and operated on a grander scale. Each legion was tied to a specific Primarch. These are genetically engineered sons of the Emperor himself, who were scattered across the galaxy when they were infants. These Primarchs were eventually found and reunited with their legions during the Great Crusade, and when that happened, the legions took on the traits and culture of their respective Primarchs and their homeworlds. The purpose of the legions was to help the Emperor unify the scattered human worlds across the galaxy under the banner of the Imperium. It was a time of expansion, of conquest and reclamation, with the Emperor at the head of this immense war machine. The legions, along with the Imperial Army and other Imperial forces, spearheaded a campaign to bring human worlds back into the fold. The legions were structured in a way that allowed them to operate independently over vast distances, often fighting entire campaigns by themselves. Each had numerous battalions, companies and subunits, often with their own specializations, be it heavy assault, reconnaissance or siege warfare. At the height of the Great Crusade, these legions were absolutely massive in scale. The largest, like the Ultramarines and the Dark Angels, had upwards of 200,000 Astartes or more. Now the legions weren't just big in size, they were highly specialized as well. They were different from each other. Each legion has its own combat doctrine, and the strengths were based on the personality of its Primarch and the culture of the world he grew up on, which is true for the chapters and the successors as well in the current era in Indomitus. For example, back then before the heresy, the World Eaters were brutal berserkers, known for their savage close quarters combat under Angron, and he was brought up in Nuceria as a gladiator. The White Scars led by Jagatai Khan emphasized speed and hit-and-run tactics with their lightning-fast bikes and vehicles. Others like the Thousand Sons under Magnus were masters of psychic warfare, even though this was a no-no at that time. The first founding of the Legiones Astartes happened around the year 700 of M30, right after the Age of Strife and during the height of the Unification Wars on Terra. These Astartes would go on to form the First Legion, or as they would be later called, the Dark Angels. They were the template on which all other legions would be based upon, and on them were based the highest of responsibilities. However, the Emperor of Mankind would still go on to create 19 more Space Marine legions using the gene seed extracts based on the DNA of all his 20 Primarchs. And although the ruinous powers had scattered the Primarchs across the galaxy by flinging them through a vortex, the Emperor still had a full set of their genetic material in his piggy bank. Using that, he enhanced soldiers from Earth, selected all over from America to Albia to the ruins of the Antarctic kingdoms, turning them into the first Space Marines. These would help finish the Unification Wars and then launch the Great Crusade to reunite humanity across the stars. As the Emperor rediscovered each Primarch, he gave them command of the legion created from their gene seed, with many Primarchs recruiting new warriors from their homeworlds. Of the original 20 legions, 2, the 2nd and the 11th legions, remain a mystery. All records of them were deleted before the Horus Heresy, and their fates have been lost to time. So during the Great Crusade, each legion had its own way of naming and organizing its forces. You would hear terms like great companies, regiments, chapters, battalions, cohorts, demi-chapters, companies, squads and maniples. But these varied wildly depending on the legion. Each Primarch and its legion had its own unique flavor, so their internal ranks and unit names reflected more of their characters, more than any standard imposed by the Imperium's administrators. By the middle of the Great Crusade, there was significant variation in how each legion was organized. However, generally speaking, a Space Marine legion was divided into around 11 or more chapters, with each chapter further broken down into smaller units. In essence, there was no one-size-fits-all when it came to how the legions were set up. But let's take a look at what the standardized structure would and should have been if they were based on the Principia Bellicosa, which was an ancient military text taken from the Roman Empire, from the ancient Roman Empire, and that the emperor took inspiration from, and was in essence somewhat of a pre-heresy Codex Astartes. So with that in mind, let's begin discussing the organizational structure of these legions, and then we'll take a look at which were the biggest. Anyway, starting from the smallest functional unit, we will go on with their command structure up to the biggest, which is the final legion command and strength. At the most basic level are the tactical squads, which were made up of 10 to 20 Space Marines, known as Battle Brothers, and they were led by a sergeant who was a non-commissioned officer. Multiple squads would then fall under the command of a lieutenant, with different legions using the titles like Dominar, Decurion, Pack Leader or Chieftain for these officers. In addition to tactical squads, there were support squads consisting of 5 to 10 legionnaires, who often had specialized roles in battle. At the next level is a company, also known as Maniple, Band or Brotherhood. They typically included around 100 Space Marines or 9 to 10 tactical and support squads, plus additional support personnel, as well as heavy support squad composed of 5 to 10 Marines carrying devastating heavy firepower. Each company was led by a company captain, though this rank had different titles depending on the legion, such as Centurion, a Prime, Wolflord or Blooded. The company command also included a standard bearer and a command bodyguard squad to protect the captain. In terms of assets, a company had access to heavy support squads, specialized squads, transports like rhinos, gunships, tanks, and even dreadnoughts. There were also tech marines and apothecaries to keep the warriors and equipment in top fighting shape. So moving up a step, we have the battalion, also known as a cohort, a battle group and a regiment, and consisted of around 500 Space Marines, or 5 companies at the minimum, which was later increased as the legions grew in number and size. The structure of a battalion was a bit more complex, with the first company often composed of veterans or elite units, while the others were line companies. The 5th company was usually made up of specialists including assault or destroy units. A battalion was led by a lieutenant commander, with the alternative titles like commander, first captain, or legate depending on the legion. The battalion command included senior specialists, advisors, and standard bearers, supported by assets such as strike cruisers, gunship squadrons, dreadnought talons, and artillery and reconnaissance sections. Then next we have a chapter which were also known as Great Companies, Millennials or Harrows during the Great Crusade, and they were originally composed of around 1000 Astartes, meaning 2 battalions, though this number varied as the legions expanded. The chapter was commanded by a Lord Commander, or also known as a Chapter Master, a Khan, a Warsmith, etc., and was supported by a cadre of senior officers known as Chapter Consuls. There were standard bearers, bodyguards, and specialists, and they were part of the command team. In terms of assets, a chapter had considerable military power, including a flagship, often a massive battle barge, with dropships for planetary assaults and gunship squadrons. The chapter's armory housed a variety of heavy weapons and armored vehicles. Now at the highest level is a legion, which could number from 10,000 Space Marines or 10 to 11 chapters in the early years to as many as 250,000 at the height of the Great Crusade. Like the Ultramarines, a legion was led by its Primarch, or a legion master if the Primarch had not yet been found. The legion command included the Praetorate, who were senior staff officers and representatives from various divisions such as the Armorium, the Apothecarian, the Librarius for psychic units, and the fleet. The legion also had the Vexillarius, or their standard bearers, and also the Honor Guard. Then there were substantial support infrastructure, including capital-class warships, planetary domains, and extensive auxiliary forces like the Imperial Army or the Solar Auxiliary. Additionally, each legion was supported by vast numbers of non-combat personnel, such as legion serfs, servitors, and logistical teams to ensure the smooth functioning of such a massive force. So these Space Marine legions during the Great Crusade were vast armies, but their sizes varied significantly due to the constant flow of new recruits, battle losses, and the organizational abilities of each Primarch. Keeping a consistent number was nearly impossible. Some legions were massive, while others remained small and consistent. There are various factors that contribute to this, such as availability of resources, recruits, and specific circumstances like mutations or gene seed issues. They also played a role. For example, the Ultramarines were the largest of all the legions, while the Thousand Sons remained smaller because of many of their members developing mutations or uncontrollable psychic powers. This issue for the Thousand Sons was known as the Flesh Change. Anyway, each of the legions had their own problems, some were more than others. And with that, let's take a look at the Legiones Astartes arranged from the smallest to the biggest legions. So from the bottom, we have the Raven Guard numbering around 80,000 warriors, followed by the Thousand Sons at 85,000, and then the Salamanders at 89,000. The Night Lords range between 90 to 120,000, while the Alpha Legion's numbers remain unclear, with estimates fluctuating between 90 and 180,000. The White Scars, Death Guard, and Space Wolves all hovered around 95,000, with the Space Wolves potentially reaching up to 100,000. The Imperial Fists exceeded 100,000, while the Emperor's Children, after rebuilding their forces, reached 110,000, which just ahead were the Iron Hands at 113,000. The Blood Angels boasted a force of 120,000, while the Word Bearers ranged between 100 to 150,000. The World Eaters and the Iron Warriors were formidable forces, each numbering between 150 to 180,000. The Sons of Horrors had a strong presence too, with estimates of between 130 to 170,000 warriors. Amongst the largest were the Dark Angels, approximating 200,000, and then the Ultramarines, standing unmatched at the top with a staggering 250,000 Astartes, due to probably, the 13th integrating the other two legions, the Lost Legions, the 2nd and 11th, which, funny enough, when the names are added, the 2nd and 11th, they do become the 13th. 2 plus 11 equals 13. Nothing to see here, folks, just trivia. And with that, we end this video on the Great Crusade Space Marine Legions, their size, ranks, and structure. So if you like this video, then watch this other one too, and if you want to browse for other sci-fi and Warhammer content, then check out our channel. So subscribe, like for support, and yeah, while you're at it, bang on the bell icon for notifications on new video uploads. Till the next time, take care, boys.